Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Studio City Neighborhood Council Homelessness Committee meeting for February. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. Somehow we get the holiday meetings this month and last month on MLK Day, although that one was my fault, so sorry about that. We'll try to keep it short and sweet in honor of the day. And we'll just kick right in. I know we've got some guests tonight as well who are donating their holiday time. And so we'll try to get to them as soon as possible. So quick roll call. Julie Houlihan, I'm here. Jeff Hartwick.
Here.
Marcia Campbell.
Here.
Ira Gold. Don't see him. Shelley Goodenson.
Here.
Scott Mandel.
Present.
All right, we have a quorum. Thank you. So just for my comments, I just want to say that things are moving very quickly in the area of homelessness with Mayor Bass, and I think with the city council. She has recently issued another executive directive where they're going to look at city-owned properties and report back to her in the next 20 days. Places that they could use for permanent and temporary housing. I feel like all the motions that I'm seeing with the city council, they're being pitched one week and voted on within a week or two, and they're going through really quickly. So a lot of the motions that we're looking at tonight were like brought up and passed very quickly. So I think that is encouraging. And hopefully we'll start seeing some results really soon. One of our contacts in Superintendent Barker's office is moving on, Jason Maruka. Sometimes he comes and visits us. He's going to be leaving office and he'll be replaced by Natalie Vartanian. And hopefully she can join us next week. We have two motions to present our committee tomorrow night. We have a weird meeting schedule where we do something, but then our motions can't make it till the next month because we're so close to the monthly board meeting. But we do have a couple motions to present tomorrow night. One is for the augmented winter shelter program, and the other has to do with coordinating over $1 billion in state funds with the LASA organization. So I look forward to presenting those tomorrow night and hopefully getting the support of the board. With that, I do have a few other things, but since we have some visitors, I want to go ahead and just close up my comments now, and we can talk a little more later about other things. And I want to open it up to our next agenda item, which is going to be public comments. And these comments should be on non-agenda items, please. We'll give you a chance to talk again on agendized items soon. If you have a comment, if you're in the public and you have a comment on a non-agenda item, please raise your hand now. Okay, hi, Alyssa. Go ahead. What would you like to? And you have 90 seconds. Go ahead.
Hi, I just wanted to come introduce myself. I'm working with a group called Better Angels, and Better Angels is a new nonprofit. Our vision is to support, confront, rally volunteers to help solve the problems that are creating homelessness in Los Angeles. So we're live already with a microloan. It's a zero interest loan fund for people at imminent risk of eviction. The average loan size is $2,500. Any money that is paid back goes right back into the fund. And we're just ramping up. We're funding about 7 loans a week, but that's something that's already available. And you'll be hearing more about us. So I just thought I'd pop in and say hello. One of our first neighborhood groups is in Studio City, because one of our leaders, Matt Littman, lives here. So hello, and I'm easy to find. My email is elissa@betterangels.la, and no other agenda, just a hello.
Well, thank you for that. And that sounds like a really amazing new organization. Thank you for checking in, and maybe I'll get in touch with you and we can talk further for a future meeting
I would love that. Nice to meet you all.
too. All right, call in user 1.
Once again, this committee has a very good agenda. It's done properly. So because of that, I have to file a grievance with Dunn that you're not acting like a bunch of shitheads, that you're trying to be transparent. So that's a big problem, Madam Chair. You got to be secretive and so forth. You got to also support the new SB 411, where you're going to be exempt from Brown Act issues or Brown Act transparency. Isn't that going to be nice? Because Beltran, that fucking dirty bitch, thinks it's good to make sure everything's done by her socialist narrative. So you got to stop this. This board has to stop being transparent, communicative, and trying to make sense. When's the last time someone from Dunn said thank you or said good job? Also, what is the job of a one of those parasites that come to the board? They're saying from Dunn. Several people have put in writing for the past 6 months, and you know what Beltran did in the response? We'll get to it based on our priorities. So, Madam Chair, if you want to have a copy of Beltran's response and her fucking cuntness and her socialism, I'll be glad to send it to you. So, the only thing I wish is if she would disclose her mother's name so I could sue her for not having her aborted. That would probably be the best thing for a lot of these neighborhood councils. But I guess socialism is on the way. That means they're going to take all your shit and so forth. And that's pretty much it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, George Vamos, hello.
Oh, okay. Two quick things. One of them is, it said we have so Alyssa has an organization called Better Angels that is looking for people. Is there any way we could put links to these things on our webpage? That's the first one. The second thing is, there's been, last month there was a lot of controversy about, homeless people not taking available beds or apartments that are out there. Is there, because the city has like a homelessness czar now, is there like a dashboard that we could also link to that says how many openings are where, and what do we know about where homeless people are? Because, when we say there's plenty of room or there's not enough room, presumably there ought to be some dashboard that reflects that and says which ones are available under what kind of program. So let's say, if apartments are for rent that are, $1,000 a month or less, that would be good to know. Or if there are any that will take Section 8 vouchers. So can we get a connection to whatever the database is on these things and put it on our webpage?
Okay, thank you. Maybe one of our government representatives tonight will have the answer to that. I don't know. If not, I'll try to look into that as well.
If you could request that, because you seem to have the contacts, to be good to know if they got the request.
Yeah. Okay. So not seeing any more hands from the public, I'm going to go ahead and move on to agenda item number 4, which is comments by public officials. And we do have a representative from CD4 and from CD2 today. So I want to thank you guys and tell you how much we appreciate you coming by. Let us know if you can answer George's question. I also had some other questions that I emailed with you guys about. So, without getting way into it, I'm just going to go ahead and call on you and let you talk. And then if we have any questions, we'll circle back. Does that sound okay? I want to recognize Denise Shaw and also Josh Scarcella. Denise, you want to go ahead and chat first?
Sure. Hi, I'm Denise Shaw. I am the new field deputy for Studio City. I look forward to working with you all. Julie, you asked about an update on the homeless count, but we don't get figures till May, June. So I don't really have an update unless there was a specific question you had about the night.
No, just, were you there and how did it go? I did
Yeah.
speak with Luis Oliart, who I know was our field captain, and he had a few comments, but I'm curious if you were there, if you had any thoughts about it. And it's good to know when the numbers come in. Thank you for that.
I was in North Hollywood doing it.
Okay.
So it was very busy and active at the location I was at. And we got all of our census tracts done.
Okay. Josh, did you have any comment about the homeless count evening?
Yeah, yeah, thanks Denise for for repping the NoHo one. I know that's a huge one. We helped organize the Studio City one with Luis Oliart, and I was there. A lot of our staff was there. I saw Scott, I saw Jeff there. Yeah, it was pretty successful from my standpoint. We cleared the tracks pretty early on in the night, and I did the count with some volunteers who were looking for a third team member. So yeah, like Denise said, it's we typically see these results released in the summer. I think last year it was a little bit into the late summer, fall, but that was because the count was delayed. So hopefully we'll see it like in June or July. That's historically what it was in previous years prior to the pandemic. But yeah, I think it was a fairly successful night, and CD4 hopes to continue to be able to help organize in this location. I believe Luis was seeing it as his last hurrah because he's been organizing it, I think, for about a decade. So
Yeah. His main comment to me was how pleased he was with the variety of people that showed up. He said in the past it had been, mostly like food pantry and faith-based people, but he said people came from like Bridges Academy, Pepperdine, Campbell Hall, LA Family Housing. He's just said it was a really wide variety of people that showed up, and he was encouraged that so many people were getting involved. Denise, I want to go back to you. You had mentioned to me about a vote that's happening tomorrow, I think involving the 4118 in
Yes.
restrictions. Can you just mention that to our committee and our
Yes.
public?
So tomorrow in council, they'll be taking public comment on adding the following locations to 4118. Riverside Drive and the 134 underpass, the North Hollywood station, the red line and orange line in North Hollywood, that station, and then North and South Weddington Park, Vineland and the 134, and Tahunga and the 101. So, and it would be great if you can call in with public comment to support this.
What time would that be?
So it's item 22 on the agenda. And it's pretty far down. I can forward you. Did I forward you the information, the agenda that had all the information for Colin?
I do have that here on my other computer. So I don't know if I can show it right now. Let me see. Yeah, I can't switch computers, but let me see if I can figure out how to get that up there. Save it. Let's keep talking while I work on that. Is there anything else that you want? I did have a question, and maybe Josh, I had posed this to you about one of the motions that we're supporting is the augmented winter shelter program. And when we voted to support it, the dates were what were the dates? they were November the 1st to March 31st, but then a correction came out and changed it to end date being February 12th. Was that like, why did that end up getting shortened by 6 weeks? Do we know? Was that just a mistake, or is that
I think that's it's a little confusing. So there's the winter shelter program, which is running through March 31st. There's 5 shelters throughout the entire county that are permanently being run. Unfortunately, none of them are in SPA 2, which is where Studio City is running, where Studio City is located. Sorry. But there's also the augmented winter shelters, which is when which is when the weather either dips to a to consistent cold, or it's rainy. And they can activate the augmented winter shelter program anytime between November 1st and March 31st. I just forwarded you an email, Julie. Whenever they activate it, LASA sends me an update, or I'm just subscribed to their distribution list where they send me an update. I'm not special or anything like that. But yeah, so right now for SPA 2, the augmented winter shelter has been extended through next Tuesday, the 21st. And so just as an update for that, the augmented winter shelter is when they actually bring motel rooms online that you can obtain by calling 211, either for yourself or on behalf of someone who's looking for a winter shelter bed. Like I said, these are only activated when there's particularly cold weather or rainy weather, though this winter they've been, I would say, activated more often than not due to the consistent wet weather we've seen, as well as some of the chilly temperatures we've seen this month. So right now in SPA 2, it is those rooms are available, and you can call 211 to see their availability each day. I will say, it's kind of challenging from what we understand to get these rooms as someone who's living on the streets. There's long wait times to get someone on the line, and the availability is not always there. So it's, I think it's something that the city and county and LASA can improve on. I do think it is also, also just the permanent winter shelters, like we need to expand that as well. So I think writing a CIS or letter, Julie, like you referred to, will, be appreciated as, hopefully we can see this expand more in the years to come.
Yeah. And hopefully we'll have more housing by next year.
Yeah.
Probably not
Obviously,
enough.
this is in addition to hopefully more interim shelter sites and then permanent housing sites, as George was asking about earlier. So.
Okay. I had one more question that I was hoping for clarification on, which is, we're working on our website and like a handout type card, and we're explaining to people that they can file the LA HOP report. And I'm running into, but there's also the 311.org that you can file a report on. So I'm looking to see if you could explain what's the difference between those two. Because if you go to 311, there's a homeless encampment report, but then the LA HOP is maybe more service oriented. I'm not clear.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate, Julie. The LA HOP is really meant for individuals and to connect them with LASA or any of the nonprofits that LASA is contracting with. So like, I know when LA HOPs are submitted, it goes to the outreach coordinators at LA Family Housing, who are the service area leads for SPA 2, and they're assigning their teams who work in that respective areas to go out and try to engage the individuals who are living in an area, or the individuals referred to in the LA HOP submission. And then for 311, it is more of like a people report encampments or that for various reasons, just to let the city know about it. And then LA SAN typically assesses it, though they track the service request, and though they do need to there's not really any action that they can take without cooperation from the city council office, the respective city council office, in scheduling like a care or care plus treatment in the area. But so yeah, that's kind of the difference, I would say. LA Hop, like you said, is more services oriented, and 311 is more for an encampment that someone would like to see removed or moved to a location that's not as disruptive.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else that you'd like to tell us about Josh or Denise before I go to public comment?
Don't really have anything.
Okay, thank you. Then I'm gonna go to public comment really quick. Calling user 1.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. These two individuals, they're nice people. I'm not going to say negative about that, but they use something called word salad. They don't talk about the price of what this costs, and they don't talk numbers or anything like that, as in how many encampments, how many people, and so forth. It's always, oh, we're moving forward really tough. So they don't talk about numbers, and they don't talk about the fiscal impact. But if you ask that, you're going to be considered a racist like me for asking those questions. So I just hope you might want to ask what the metrics has been for the past 2 years, rather than them saying, well, go talk to that department. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other public hands, I will go to committee. Marcia?
Yeah, I had a question, a couple of questions or comments really. I was driving by the other day a couple of times on my way to the 134, and on Vineland and Moore Park, there's like a Pizza Hut, and there's been a growing like lots of trash, and I see a person there all the time. So I just called the manager and I said, hey, what's going on with that? And he just sighed and gave me an earful of, they've filled out forms, they've called 311, they've called the police. There's been a gentleman who's been there for months now, who's been accosting employees, getting really, really aggressive. They've had to clean up after him, and they're sort of at their wits' end because there's nothing they can do. There's even times when he's come in naked, been standing outside naked, yelling at employees. People are scared to go to work. And so in those cases, and even with, there's also a gentleman named Jonathan, but I think he may have been picked up again by the police the other day. In those cases where we're seeing people repeatedly, but who aren't necessarily wanting housing, but there's also other elements or things not being done, what would be your advice to people or business owners in that situation? Paper Source also had a similar problem a couple months ago.
This is at Vineland and Moore Park?
Vineland and Moore Park.
Okay. Well, I'll look into this location. It's a tough one because they're doing all the right things. So it's just, I'm assuming loss has been there, but do you know if that took place? If LAPD's been there, I'm thinking.
No one has been there. They said they have called the police dozens of times. No one comes out. They've called LASA. They've called all the things, and no one, all the places, and no one has helped.
Okay, so, but they have made a report to LA Hop?
I believe so. But they're just in search of answers when someone isn't, no one's moving. And it just seems to the business owner, which I understand, cumbersome. Like, why isn't anybody doing anything? So their hands feel tied.
Okay, I will reach out to the manager. I'll go out there and check that out.
His name is Carlos.
Because LASA may have been out and he wasn't there. So then they just closed it. So let's see if we can get them out again.
He's there every day.
He's there every day. Okay, so let me.
Every day.
Okay, I mean, he probably hasn't. He's not accepting housing at this point, I'm assuming.
Yeah,
So
and they've said that they've offered housing. It's clear when I was talking to the manager and he felt for him. He's like, as we all are on this call, this is a human being. We want someone to get help, but there's clearly, from what the manager has said, like there's mental health and a pretty severe drug problem. And so that's where they're having a difficult time.
yeah. Well, let me look into it.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Jeff?
Good evening. Denise and Josh, I guess this is directed to you guys. I just want to applaud Council Member Krikorian for bringing up the 4118 motion tomorrow. You have my full support in that. I've gotten numerous communications from stakeholders who have complained about these areas that are getting worse and worse. So I'm looking forward to the motion passing tomorrow. Josh, I just wanted to understand from your office, from CD4, whether or not Councilmember Rahman will support the motion presented by Councilmember Krikorian tomorrow. I wanted to get your take on whether or not this area, which has really been degraded and needs help, will be helped by Councilmember Rahman's vote. And the last thing is, there's an individual who continues to reside at the Beaman Park Library, the Studio City Library. Been there for 2 years, apparently service resistant. I've tried to reach out to the individual. Many have tried as well. And I want to know what CD4 is actually doing in terms of outreach to this individual who's elderly and continues to live out in the rough. And that's inhumane. And I want to know what efforts have been made by CD4's outreach to reach out to this person. So if you could answer those two questions, Josh, I appreciate that. Thanks.
I do know, I can answer the 4118 question first. Historically, Councilmember Rahman has not voted in support of 4118 zones. With that said, they've typically passed in each respective office. And you know, I don't know for sure if that is how she's voting tomorrow. I haven't had conversations with her about the legislative agenda. But it's, you know, it's our office's just belief that, you know, we can work with individuals in locations, and that, you know, we've sometimes seen that we've not seen a lot of like success, I think, in getting people indoors. And I want to say that as respectfully as possible. It's just a disagreement between our council office and other council offices. So I don't believe we'll be voting in support of it tomorrow. You know, but we, you know, want to respect, you know, Councilmember Krikorian for putting it forward. And, you know, it's just how we'll decide to vote. But I don't actually know that for sure, to be honest. In terms of the gentleman at the library, I do know that LA Family Housing's public spaces team has been working with him, has been trying to make progress with him. He is, like you said, he is very dedicated to staying in that location. I think one thing that our office can support is just making sure that we're working with the county on the Department of Mental Health being involved with him. You're right, he's getting older, and it's, you know, not a very safe place or it's safe for him to be outside at all. And it's important for DMH to be monitoring him and seeing if his situation is worsening. When that happens, they are able to sometimes build a case and put a hold on individuals like him. But we've been trying to work more in step with the different supervisors representing each of these areas, or representing parts of our district, because we work with 3 county supervisors to support us in trying to advocate for more DMH resources and ensuring that DMH outreach is happening to individuals like this. So I haven't actually had discussions with DMH about this gentleman, but I'll start. I appreciate you flagging, because especially like a night like tonight, it's definitely worth bringing to their attention. So I know it's frustrating to see someone like him just consistently out there, and there's definitely more that I think we should be doing. So thanks for flagging.
Thank you. Ira?
Yes, hi. So I mentioned this would be to Denise and Josh. I mentioned this in a previous meeting as well. I feel like it's always kind of the elephant in the room. I'd like to hear some advocacy for those who own, lease, or work in Studio City. I speak with a lot of businesses. I speak with businesses, homeowners, tenants, home buyers on a consistent basis. And there's a very common theme. In fact, I would say 100% of people who express their opinion express the feeling that their concerns are less important than the unhoused population. They need an advocate on a governmental level. It's important because they need to be heard, but they also need to feel like someone who's coming from a quote unquote more fortunate point of view, meaning housed or able to work or able to lease, are not criminalized for being able to do so. There are people who are, again, for lack of a better term, more fortunate, who are able to work, lease, or live in Studio City, where they own a property or they lease in a property, they work here. They can also be very caring individuals and care about people as human beings that are on the streets. At the same time, they can also feel they also should not be criminalized for their concern about what they're seeing out there. So again, just to reiterate, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, we really need an advocate for this section of the population on a governmental level. It's not existing. It's the elephant in the room. Anybody who wants to voice their concern risk having being doxxed, and that's not right. So to that end, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's like it's a very like, first of all, I think we're all frustrated by it. It's part of the reason I started getting involved in this type of work, and have since joined the council member's office. Is everyone's frustrated with it. Everyone believes everyone deserves dignity, and I'm sorry that you feel like that it's that concern is not met by our council office and the city government. I think we all want the same thing. We want people to be safely off of the streets, getting the treatment they deserve, getting housing, and building, becoming having a stable lifestyle. And that's something that our council office really tries to juggle, is how do we do that with also considering the needs of the rest of the community, the businesses, the homeowners, the stakeholders in any sort of neighborhood like Studio City. And I think the city is built to have sanitation, have these different departments, try to beautification, parks, keep these areas clean. It's always just trying to negotiate how do we do that while also trying to serve the people who are living on the streets or living in the parks. And I'm trying to just, and I think we do, find compromise in that space, and working with RAP and, allowing them to keep their parks clear, but also working with people there while they're in the parks to try to find shelter and things like that. I'd be curious, like, Ira, like, is there like a specific example where you just don't feel like the homeowners are supported? Or like, I know you use the word criminalized, but I don't know, is that I'm curious to hear, like, what's an area that you feel like that is that, I don't know, like homeowners or businesses are being criminalized, because I'm just a little confused by that wording, and I just want to make sure I'm understanding the question correctly.
Sure. Most any public arena, anybody who is again, I'm just going to use the word for lack of a better term, is fortunate enough to be able to live, work in a home with four walls and a ceiling. If somebody mentions, hey, this person, there's an unhoused person who's living on the corner next to a store, and every day the store owner, which by the way, I see in my neighborhood, every day a store owner has to come over with a blower because he's afraid of moving the person and then getting stabbed. He has to come over and stand 10 feet away or 5 feet away with like an air blower to try to blow the air on the person to wake them up so that they can get away from their front door so that they can receive customers and customers won't be deterred, right? So if someone were fortunate enough to be able to have a house here or live here or work here in a house, and someone were to say, hey, that homeless person shouldn't be allowed to stay there, then that person would be criminalized because they're coming from a more fortunate point of view. It's looked at in most any court of public opinion nowadays, especially in Southern California, right? Or in California, it's looked at as the fortunate looking down and snubbing the less fortunate, which that's not the case. People can be humane and can care about other people and still feel like if they bought into an area and they've worked hard and been fortunate enough to be able to buy into a nice area, and they should be able to feel that there should be clean area. They should get what they paid for, right? So, and there's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. Of course, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to disagree, but in my opinion, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, right? They can still be caring individuals and still want what they spent a ton of money in their trade, their resources for. So to answer the other part of your question is, why do I feel like that's the criminalization part? Why do I feel like there are no advocates? Well, because while both sides are trying to come up with a solution for homelessness still exists and gets worse. And while we're trying to figure out a way to solve this, that person on the corner is still there every single day. The person by that I believe you said the Pizza Hut or whatever that store is still there all the time. So who's being affected daily? Yes, the person who's unhoused probably has issues and is being affected on the daily, but it's not right that the store, the manager who's trying to conduct business has to deal with that without the city coming in and intervening. So there's this back and forth. And while we're waiting for this grand problem to be solved, the problem gets worse, and it's not fair for those quote unquote fortunate people who are criminalized. That's the elephant in the room. I feel like that's never really addressed in a head-on way. Sorry for taking so long.
No, I mean, you're totally right. It isn't fair for anybody, no matter how wealthy or poor you are, to have to be experiencing this issue. It's unfair to the people, like you said, who are experiencing homelessness, and it's also unfair that anyone who has stake in any community has to figure out a way to navigate through their community when they have to deal with these problems that just are not right. And this is something like we're trying to improve. We're trying to, I mentioned DMH earlier. We're trying to work with state government, county government on trying to hire up, making sure that there's a DMH resources where they can come out and they can have their psychiatric mobile response team actually respond when they're called. We're trying to do things like that. We're trying to enhance teams like the Circle team, which is located currently in certain parts of the valley, not Studio City right now, as well as areas like Hollywood and downtown, which is an unarmed response team, an outreach team that can get involved with situations like you just cited, like when someone is blocking a doorway or something like that. They can be the team that responds to those calls. Right now, it's expanded to certain parts of the city. It hasn't expanded to the entirety of the city. Our office, and I'm sure, I don't want to speak for Denise, but I'm sure Councilmember Krikorian's office, we want to see that expand. Denise, maybe sorry, I shouldn't have said that, but I think, we want to see that type of response, come to Studio City so that people can have support when they face these types of issues. And then we also just need to bring on more interim housing, and we need to bring on more permanent housing so that we can get people indoors. We're playing catch up right now, to be honest. And that takes a lot of patience from the people who are living on the street to the people who are living in the communities or running businesses in the communities that that have to figure out a way to go through their daily lives while also, working with people who are out on the streets, or figuring out a way to treat people humanely while also not having someone sitting on a sidewalk interfere with their way of life. So I understand you're frustrated, Ira, and we're frustrated too. And I think while we wait for this, grand solution, like you put it, we need to do a better job to build support for community members, and have someone that you can call and get a response from, whether that's PD, Circle, DMH, paramedics, in a quick fashion. And that's something that I think most of us are in agreement on. So I hear you, and I will relay your thoughts and concerns back to, our office.
Thank you. And just a quick comment, and I'll keep this going, but it would be lovely if there was some sort of a known process or timeline, like, if there was a outreach, some type of thing that people knew how it worked. This is what happens, and this is when, a person must either take housing or, move from this area. It would be nice if there was a known process published. Anyway, I'll just make that comment and keep it going. Shelley, go ahead.
Hi, yeah, I had a question. This was in regards to persons experiencing homelessness that parking in front of schools. This was the man that was parked in front of the country school off of Magnolia and Weddington for about 2 weeks in a van with blocked out windows staring at the kids. And I appreciate how quickly a police officer, responded to that today. But I did want some clarification, because information that I received from him was that there is a 500 feet rule in front of schools, but that some schools may not fall under that list. And the particular school that we were talking about today, he wasn't sure if they fell under that list. So my question is, what differentiates some schools, like where some schools are on the list and some schools aren't?
I think, well, for schools, I think it has to be an accredited school, but I think the issue there had to do with it wasn't in an encampment, he was in a vehicle. So vehicle dwelling is different. And I think that was the situation there. I know that Jeff was out there from our office working on that. So it's a more challenging when it's vehicle dwelling, because we can't tow the vehicle if they're living in it. But and then there's the case of what I don't know what the parking restrictions were. But so they'd have to adhere to the parking restrictions, so they would be ticketed, but not necessarily towed.
Okay, but there's nothing in terms of somebody, living in a vehicle in front of a school. There's nothing that can be done about that to, have them assessed for, housing, mental health needs.
Well, yes, we can have loss to go out. We can do the, send resources and things of that nature. The problem was that when they were referring to that 500 feet rule, it's because he was in a vehicle, I think was the situation.
Thank you. Scott, go ahead.
Thanks. I have a question about the reports to the LA HOP. I'm speaking specifically for Studio City. These are all the same familiar faces. Some of them we've seen for years. I got to imagine there's a report for each and every person today that is unhoused in Studio City. So what happens when the report comes in again and again and again, time and time again? When LAHSA comes out and they see other people in the vicinity of where the report was, do they self-generate reports? When LAPD, fire department, when you and Denise or Jeff Camp go out, or the other spa to service providers, and they do their outreach week after week, can we assume that there is a HOP report for each and every one of these persons that we know of in Studio City? Whether you're talking about Jonathan or the person who was on Vantage, or the people under the ramp at Sportsman's Lodge, they actually burrowed under the ramp, and it looks like they're living in a prison. It's really, I'm sure you've seen it, Josh. I don't know, maybe you haven't.
Yeah, I've been in contact with RAP about that one. I know the Rangers are going out tomorrow on that location.
So for the HOP reports, when people are told to do it, what happens when there already is a report? I mean, are there any new homeless people in Studio City that just arrived, yesterday, for which there is no HOP?
Yeah,
I haven't seen any.
Scott. So Scott, yeah, it's a good question. We don't receive the HOP, ourselves as in the council offices, but like I said, the full, LA Family Housing is actually fielding those HOPs, or those LA HOP requests, and I work pretty closely with that team. I attend the SPA 2 coordination meeting, and I can get some more details from them on how they field it, what they do when they get a repeat one, because that's definitely happening. But I don't think that, Scott, I don't think that they need a HOP to initiate engagement. Like you said, if they're getting a HOP for a person living on the Greenway, and then they notice 2 other folks in the vicinity, they can engage, and they can enroll them in the homelessness management information system, the HMIS Clarity, and from there, they have a record of the person. They can continue to work with them on trying to seek shelter, or make referrals to shelter, or working with them on documentation, or working with them on addressing health or mental health needs. So I think the last thing I'll just offer here is, if you, Scott, or anyone else on the call, make an LA HOP for someone, and just want to advocate for it further, you can always email me, and if it's in our district, and share that LA HOP reference number, and I could get it in front of LA Family Housing, and just get any sort of level of broad detail. They're not going to share. They're not able to really share too much detail, but I can see if I can get an answer from them, if they have, engaged an individual, or we know that ourselves sometimes, just, based off of individuals where we're aware of, from, neighbors advocating for or complaining about. So definitely happy to try to get some more answers. And I will work on also trying to get just any sort of detail from LA Family Housing on how they feel the HOPs, and what the timeline is of getting those, because I know sometimes those are kind of delayed. So I would say, if you want to feel like you're advocating for it the most, I offer up my services to try to get those service request numbers in front of LA Family Housing.
So just a quick follow-up for you and Denise, specific to Studio City. Are the 2 of you fairly confident that, as far as the encampments for Care and Care Plus, and as far as the persons, given that I would say the overwhelming majority are all familiar faces, are you fairly confident that all the encampments and all the people have been reported in some way to some agency, and there aren't people just languishing out there who have never been identified? Because that seems to be the impression that the public has, whereby, oh, you have to report it, that's why nothing has happened. Whereas I believe they've all been reported, that both of you know, LAHSA knows, LA Family Housing knows, all the SPA 2 providers, LAPD, all know where they all are, where all the encampments are. There's other reasons why things are not getting done, but not for the lack of being reported. Is that fair?
I would say for our district, the people who are consistently in a location, or have a rooted location of encampment, that awareness does exist, and that outreach has happened. It's the more I would say it's the challenges come when someone is in a location for a short period of time, because we know that the outreach is not an instant response. It takes several days sometimes. Sometimes you luck out and you can get someone to come out day of. Other times that's just not how it is. So those are the challenging cases. But for people who have been in a place for several weeks at a time, I think that outreach is happening. The challenges come with each individual case, where the person is interested in moving to, what that person's mental health is, availability of beds, all those just types of issues that come up. And availability of beds is a big one. We recently had a lot of beds open up in our district, but those fill up quite fast, even when we do have a new interim shelter site that opens up. So it's not gonna, and we also have a district that spans further west and east from Studio City. So there's a lot of people looking for, the beds that open up. So it's not, just because outreach is happening doesn't mean that someone's going to be able to secure a shelter bed. But anyways, that's a little bit of a longer winded response to just your simple question is, if someone is consistently in the neighborhood, is outreach happening? I would say most likely yes. Though if you ever want to be sure, I'm happy to help to work with you to, confirm that by working with LAWSA or LA Family Housing.
Great.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. Our chronic locations, our Care Plus, they've been offered beds. They've outreach has been there. They're just not taking the beds. So definitely in those chronic care locations. And then again, what Josh said about, I'm happy to look into any LA HOP or outreach as well to follow up. But because of HIPAA, they can't provide us much, but they'll say they've been out there or they couldn't find the individual or what basic information.
Great. Thank you. How are you guys doing on time? Because I promised you that I would have you done like 25 minutes ago. So I know we have one more question. I don't know if you have time or not. I want to respect your time because I want you to come back when I promise you that you're going to be done by 7:30. So do you have time for one more question? Or are you like running out the door?
One quick one for me.
Okay, George, you're lucky. They're so nice. I'm going to let
Well,
you
thank
have your
you.
question.
Thank you, really appreciate that.
All right.
I know the question I had before about linking to a dashboard that shows what resources are available. That would be the kind of a thing where it would really be good if we also knew what the backlog for those resources were, like how many people are waiting for outreach, how many people have been reached out to, but there's no place to put them, or like this, they should, the city probably has some statistics on this. I mean, if it's the computer's tracking the requests, then there's got to be a counter. Is there any way that they could be we could have something we could link to where we could see, oh yeah, well, everybody's been contacted, but there's no beds or there's no rooms or whatever,
Any thoughts on that, you guys? I don't know how much of that you can make public.
I don't think we get that information in terms of, because the council offices aren't doing the outreach and it's separate organization.
but the city must, right?
It's
I mean-
LAWSA. Josh, you probably can answer it better than I can.
One thing we get from the interim shelter sites in our district is just like an occupancy report, once a week or once a month in terms of how many beds are filled, how many are available, how many intakes happen, that type of thing. George, what you're advocating for in terms of number of people on the streets and who's waiting for shelter, that doesn't exist yet. I know, that number of people on the streets is always changing, which is why there's the annual point in time count, to give us a good idea of how many people are on the street and how resources should be allocated. But I know that LAWSA I have seen a dashboard in terms of just room availabilities for shelters. I don't know if that's public. I can go back and
I used to be a programmer for the county. the data processing department is able to generate the data. The city council is able to request them to publish it, and we could link to it. Saying that the data is not being published right now is obvious because we're not seeing it, but the data is available to be published, and the city council has the ability to request it from the administration.
But so you're looking for what, I'm a little confused, what the population is on the streets at a
No.
given moment?
Okay,
or
we
what
don't,
the
we don't,
shelters
we
are?
don't know that, but we know how many contact requests there have been, how many outreach events have happened.
Yeah.
We know how
I'm sure
many,
they have
how many,
that.
how many rooms, how many beds are available, and what the backlog is. All that's available. The city has the information, and because city council has the authority to request that, it could be requested and we could link to it. I used to work for the county data processing. This is very doable.
Right, but it's gonna change it, daily. I mean,
Yes, that's a live database feed. I
Okay, so
I
like
could program it myself if you'd give me the authority, but your programmers can do it too.
And in terms of the shelters for our tiny homes, they don't take walk-ins. They have to be referred in with ALASA.
And there's a list,
up.
and there's a list and a backlog count that could be published. How many people have applied? How many have been given? How many are available?
They pretty
What's
much,
what's the waiting time? All that's available electronically. It
Yeah,
might need to be programmed, but the data is there.
I don't think we have a waiting list right now. I think,
If it's zero, that's really important to know. If there's no waiting list and there's open beds, that's something we want to know.
I think there are beds in our district. I think.
Okay, but we need a live
But
display.
that could change tomorrow,
Yeah,
that could
and
change
that's
tomorrow.
why we need a live display that would show there was a bed there and now it's not there anymore. We could pull up our cell phones, look at it, and we could say, hey, there's a bed for you.
Okay, so that's food for thought for them. I'd like to go ahead and move forward if we could, you guys. Is that okay with you guys? I want to thank Denise and Josh for your time. Thank you for coming and visiting with us this month and for all the work that you do. And we'll speak with you soon.
Yeah,
Happy
thanks for
Valentine's Day.
having us. And
Okay.
George, let me see if I can get any details on any available dashboards and any work that's being done, and see if anyone else knows about it. I'll reach out to Julie if there's anything I find. But yeah, thanks for having me. And
Okay.
yeah, have a good one.
Appreciate you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for having me too. Good
All
night.
right, thanks. Okay, you guys, let's move forward. I know there are some, George, have you ever been to the LASA.org website? Because LASA, the county is in charge of everything, not the city, although the city can request things from them, but LASA, their website, LAHSA, I believe it's .org.
I'm there now.
Yeah, they have various dashboards, probably not exactly what you're talking
I'm on
about, but
the
there's a
page. I
lot
don't
of good
see the dashboards.
information.
I'm
there.
I'm on the page. I don't see the dashboards.
We'll get to it separately. I've got to keep moving the meeting forward, but there's a lot of good information on that website, and just so if you want to poke around on there, but I don't imagine exactly what you're asking for is there. All right, you guys, let's keep moving forward on the agenda. Let's go to number 5. Discussion and possible motion, homelessness outreach cards and flyers. I'll just read the motion, potential motion. The Homelessness Committee requests funding of up to blank to create materials which can be distributed to those who need services or information about reporting encampments. So this is something that we've been working on. We talked about it last month and I had the big list going. It's ready. I have turned it over to our vice president to start getting it posted on the website. I don't have an update from him on how that's going. I have followed up a couple times, but I'll let you know when I know something. But I do think that no matter whether he's able to do graphic work for us or not, we are going to need to do some printing. So I thought it would be a good idea for us to just at least as a committee agree that we want to ask for like $500 or so to at least get some type of a budget going for the development of these things. And if that turns out to be short or, you know, too much or too little, we can always go back. But I think we need a budget. I personally, and I can bring in a simple, I think it would be nice to have a card we can hand out as opposed to a larger piece of paper. Or I know Peter Cole, one of our stakeholders who's here, had forwarded me something they did maybe 5 or 6 years ago that looks like a pamphlet. I did look at it pretty closely. I have some different information I want to include, but a pamphlet seems to me like a lot of pages and maybe a little more than even we need just for outreach. I'm thinking like a simple postcard, like on one side has, if you are homeless and you need services, this is your side. Maybe on the other side is, you know, how to report things. Maybe that side has like the LASA and the 311 and the various contact numbers. So maybe a double-sided card that we could hand out. So I know we could probably have a 5-hour discussion about what's on the card. I'm not sure that I want to do that tonight since we have already spent time going over what the content is, but I'd like to just move forward if we can in getting a motion together that requests some money so that we can do some printing. So I'll just with that, and I would say like $500 sounds like a reasonable number to me. And I will open that up for discussion right now. So calling user 1, go ahead.
Madam, did you call on me?
I did.
Okay, yeah, thank you. This is a good opportunity. Thank you very much for number 5. As to George, the programmer, I'm very familiar as a code monkey myself. I'm very familiar with LASA's contact management system, and they actually generate those reports. Those modules are actually in there. So, and the 2 individuals from the councils, they know about them because they get some of those numbers. So, shame on you for asking the good questions, and they definitely did not want to fucking answer them. So I'm sorry to say that those modules and their content management system is already there, and that's just pretty much it. And you should be punished for asking those tough questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Do we have any comments or questions from the committee about this potential motion? Go ahead, Scott.
So you're talking strictly about the printing costs, not the design or creation of, just once you have, or we have an approved document of sorts, it's just the printer itself, right? Just the cost of the printer to make the
Well,
post.
I'm not saying that because I'm not 100% sure that we don't need a little help with the design. Because I see it as 2 different things. I see it, one is the stuff that goes up on the website, which could be pretty simple, and the other it being the postcard. And since I don't have a response from our internal board member yet, I'm not clear if I'm going to get the help or if that help is the exact help that we need. So I'd love to leave the option open to if we wanted to go on to like fiverr.com and get something like that, or, you know, to get some help in that way. I wouldn't want to spend a lot of money on that, but I don't want to say right now that it would only be for printing.
The reason I ask is we now have a functioning budget committee. So we're really not supposed to be bringing matters of finance directly to the board. And the budget committee will schedule a meeting to go over any request for funding. However, we also have a youth committee. And I think if you have at least the content of what you want in the flyer, and we ask Fiona if anyone at the Campbell Hall in their whatever that department would be, would want to do it. I mean, I've seen some of the flyers they've created, and those kids are pretty talented. And I think they could whip something out that's pretty sharp, really fast. And I'm looking at that same person, by the way, will not respond to me. He has the printing prices for the election postcards, and you won't give me the document, but I captured the screen from the last meeting, and it was $738 to make 20,000 5x7 postcards, 14-point gloss. So the printing is relatively cheap. It's finding what you want to print is what I'm understanding may be the challenge. So if this committee can work on what they want the flyer to contain, I think we can get somebody to design it for us pretty quick. Either someone who's on the call right now or a student from Campbell Hall or Harvard Westlake. I'll get them on it, and I think we'll get something back that's pretty professional very quickly. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so tell me exactly what you want me to do. You want me to send you what I'm looking for? Or do you want me to come to a budget meeting or
Well,
just lay it out for me?
Well, it's a 5x7 card, right? Is that what we're looking for?
Yeah, and then also a layout that would go onto the website. So I think there's sort of two components that I'm looking at. One's the outreach card that you can take into
Right.
the community, and one is what's going to go up on the website. I feel like they're not exactly the same because I think the website can hold a lot more information.
Oh,
And
sure.
the card can have a reference to the website, but also have information. So it's two pieces.
Yeah, I think at the last meeting, George actually mentioned that we could put whatever you were going to be printing on the card, we can have that on the website for people to print themselves as well.
Correct.
Plus a more detailed flyer for people who are just viewing on the computer that want some information. They can click and find out all the information they want. And then for someone who wanted to print their own flyer, there would be click here to print your flyer, and you'd be able to print the 5x7 on whatever type of paper the person at home was using. Plus we can print our own. But I think for the cost, if it's a 5x7 card and you're thinking about printing 100, that might even just be absorbed in our office supplies budget. So
I don't know if 100's right or not, but I guess we'll have to figure that out, because I do think, like, I visited PaperSource last week. We talked at length about the situation at PaperSource. I was there last week. There was a new person there. The person we talked about last time disappeared literally, I think, the day after our meeting. I don't know where she went, but then last week there was a new person and they had no idea how to report it. They were very frustrated. And so I gave them all the information. I think it'd be great if we could, go to businesses and hand these out, or at the farmers market, share that with outreach and have these to hand out, because people don't know what an LA hop is. They don't know. They've never heard of it. Anybody I've ever mentioned it to is like, what? So I would like to have, and I think it's a great idea if people can print their own, but I don't think that many people will. I think that's people like George might, but I think that's a small percentage of the population. But I don't know. I guess I don't know how many. I'm not trying to be argumentative. I don't know how many cards we need. That's a good question.
well, even if it's 500, we'll price. I'm not sure the printing company, I have to go back and review the meeting because he won't respond, but I think it was Pink Printer. So
It was.
okay, so it's a 5x7 card. we can easily find. Tomorrow night, the budget's going to be discussed, and we're going to be discussing the election mailer, and after which we'll have a much better handle on how much money we have. And then we can sort of do this, but I think getting the price is going to be a lot easier than designing the card. So,
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, just getting it.
If this committee can just come up with what do you want on the card, then I will help arrange someone to design it.
All right, I'll get it to you.
Barcode link to the web page. That way you can change what you see. All of these people have Obama phones. The most important thing is a barcode link, like in a restaurant menu, that links to the page that has current information. Sorry for the cutting in.
Right, so that's back to the design. So once we have a concept of what you want, what the committee wants on the card.
Yeah.
I think that's the hard part. Then we'll get someone to create the
Okay.
the
I can get that to you next week probably, because the long part of it's done. It's just more of like the condensed version is the only
Right.
thing that's not done. So, okay, great. That sounds good. Sounds good. So I guess we're gonna table this and I'll work directly with you, Scott, to push this forward, and because it's not appropriate for us to do a motion for money at this point, which I wasn't aware of. So we'll just table it and move forward. Is everybody, do I need to do anything but just say that? Okay, I think we'll go ahead and move forward with our next line item, number 6. And I'll just say quickly, budget, agenda items.
What's going on? I can't even do.
Budget, the agenda items 6, 7, and 8, and 9. These are motions that have already passed. And so I bring them up because the wisdom is that we should go ahead and be on record on things that we support. So I'll go through these, and since they've already passed, I think they're easy to support, but maybe y'all will surprise me and say you don't support them. So let's just go through them. So number 6, the board of the Studio City Neighborhood Council supports or opposes Council File 22-1545, in which the LA City Council supports Mayor Bass's declaration of a local emergency with regard to homelessness. So it's just a pretty simple motion. Mayor Bass has already done the executive directive. The LA City Council has said, yes, we agree with this. We sign off on this and we agree. And this would be us saying, yes, we agree with all of you. So I would say that we're probably going to say support, but I will go ahead and open this up and for public comment. And Puppet, I see you are there, ready to go. Go ahead. You have 90 seconds. Go ahead.
What a bunch of losers. So, where you been? It was on Valentine's Day, yes. Buying my woman her little gift. Now we get to the issue. Is there really a state of emergency? Or are there just too many crackheads in our streets? And to Kevin De Leon, yes, on Channel 5, he took the largest city trailer and removed the largest obstruction of homeless criminal items up the sidewalk ever. He did? Yes. Yes. And some homeless criminals tried to attack the police. Scott likes that kind of thing. Let's give everybody a hand. Yes, re-elect Kevin De Leon if he continues to do that. See, that's what Goat Puppet wants. What do you want? I want clean sidewalks. And I want working fucking lights on all of our street lights. And I want to put these homeless criminals to work. I have a job, a very important job for you out there, the homeless. We have a little problem over in Ukraine, and I need your help. Would you please go over there and help my friend, Mr. Zelensky, and drive the Russians out of there? And we'll pay you and give you housing and school benefits. Yes, and school benefits.
Hey, that's time.
Let's make a motion to send them to Ukraine. What do you say, Scott? Let's do it.
Thank you.
Let's.
All right, call in user 1. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Madam Chair, did you actually read the motions? I hope you did. You
Yes,
don't have
I
to.
did.
You did? Okay. Now my question is, did you actually understand them? Now, one thing that bureaucrats are good about is called comprehensive reform. That's actually an oxymoron. They never talk about the past fuck-ups they've done. They just create new labels so there's a problem where they're the solution. So you get Mayor Brass says, I'm the solution for a problem that I just thought of taking care of. For the past 10 years, they don't talk about their fuck-ups. You get that person from Ramen Noodle's office that basically told several people on your board to go fuck yourself. Socialism and homelessness is number one. So, but he was nice about it. He should have at least used a little lube when he did it, but that's fine. But these motions say nothing. There's no fiscal study. They just use, we need $1.3 billion of blah, blah, blah. There's no line item fiscal study or strategic memorandum on this. It's all scant, vague, ambiguous, overbroad. They don't care. They're just gearing up for the Olympics. So, plus you got to deal with that little ramen noodle shithead Josh that says, socially challenged.
That's time. Finish up.
Thank you.
Thanks.
No problem.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody on the committee want to make a comment about this? All right. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I read the directive. I mean, it's very well intentioned. I don't know that it will make much of a difference. But I looked at the directive. It includes reference to what are called key performance indicators. And I think we should support the declaration, but I think we should also add some suggested key performance indicators.
Okay.
I would suggest one of them being a decrease in numbers of homeless individuals who are service resistant. I think that needs to be a key indicator because there are lots of service resistant homeless individuals who are grouped in with the homeless committee as one big group, but it's a special group that really is creating a lot of difficulty for stakeholders throughout the city. So I think that should be added as a key performance indicator to get our support as a neighborhood council. And I think the other element that should be added is an increase in designations of 4118 special enforcement zones, because those special enforcement zones do actually work. And I think that there needs to be not only a carrot, but a stick sometimes to help prod along the service resistant to avail themselves of services that they truly need. So I would keep your motion as it is, but include the language supports if amended to include the following additional key performance indicators of progress, and then add those two particular key performance indicators. And then at the end of it, use a standard CIS language. The motion is also to be submitted as a community impact statement, CIS, to Council File 22-1545. So I think we need, the key performance indicators as they stand right now, I think are deficient. I think we need to add those two elements, and then it would be a pretty good motion for the neighborhood council to support. Thanks.
Okay. Anybody else? Should I reread the motion with that addition, or do we understand it correctly? So we're past public comment on this one. So I'm gonna go ahead and just go to the vote. And I'll reread the motion. Studio City Neighborhood Council supports Council File 22-1545, in which LA City Council supports Mayor Bass's declaration of a local emergency with regard to homelessness. If amended to include these two key performance indicators: one, a decrease of homeless individuals who are service resistant, and two, increase the number of 4118 designated zones. So I will go to a vote on this one as amended. Marcia Campbell,
Aye.
Ira Gold,
Yes.
Jeff Hartwick,
Yes.
Julie Houlihan, yes. Scott Mandel,
Yes.
great, motion passes. Okay. Agenda item number 7. Read the potential motion, and I will make sure to do the CIS if we take these to the board. The Board of the Studio City Neighborhood Council supports or opposes Council File 230033, brought by Council District 2's Paul Krikorian and CD4's Nithya Raman. The legislation supports Mayor Bass's declaration of a local emergency and establishes a bank account which the mayor administrates. The motion provides funding of more than $100 million from various existing accounts dedicated to homelessness, and it requires weekly reporting from agencies, including Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, LAHSA, LA Housing Department, and the Housing Authority of the City of Los Angeles and the Department of Transportation. There are a lot more details in the actual motion. This is my summary of the motion, but I think it does, outline it pretty well that they're making a bank account from existing accounts, homelessness accounts, putting it together and giving Mayor Bass discretion on spending this money. So with that, I will go to public comment. Goat Puppet, you have 90 seconds. Go ahead.
Is that smart, Scott? Giving Mayor Fishhead all of that money for herself? I mean, you have to remember that little FBI thing is still going on. March the 7th, Mark Ridley, no name, is gonna see if he's gonna go to trial or plead guilty, that worthless piece of shit. What if he says to the FBI, Karen Bass took that scholarship like my son did? It was a quid pro quo. Then what? What about the money? She walks away. How dare you? Give one person, Mayor Tuna, all of this money, giving a fish with a fish head, all of that money. And who did it? Paul Martin Krikorian. Paul Martin Krikorian, who enabled the DWP Jones lawsuit in his budget committee. That was Paul Martin Krikorian. Yes. Who hired the Kiesel law firm and Paul Paradis? Hey, that was Paul Krikorian too. That's right. Getting it? Are you getting it in your fucking heads? What are you people doing here? You're enabling Nithya Noodle Raman, Paul Martin Krikorian, who can't even pay his bar dues with a suspended bar card, and Karen Bass on the cusp of being ratted out, and you're giving all of the keys to the castle?
Okay, that's time.
You people are insane. Insane. You make me look like I'm rational.
Thank you.
I think they do.
All right, calling
Yes.
user 1.
But you're still insane. No, I'm not. I'm just different.
Okay, let me tell you what the problem is with this motion. Not a thing that you misread it or anything. I like how they said they'll do metric and data requests every week. What's being reported? Oh, they don't fucking say, but they're going to report. What are you going to report? Data and metrics. What field points are you doing? Oh, go fuck yourself. You're a Republican conservative. We can't tell you. Second of all, how this is structured, this is political currency for Bass. You play by her game, you suck her off, or you don't get any money. So basically what she's going to be doing is this money's going to be transferred to political people so they can work at these nonprofits like LAHSA, in which, if you read the controller's reports, sucks, and they'll hire political people there, and they'll get money so they can pay their wages and direct transfer. So I understand what it says on its face, but I'm just going to tell you what's really going to happen. It doesn't work. And also, what's the penalty if they don't report? What's the penalty? Is there a penalty tax? No, not at all. We can't do it because we don't have enough people. This happens all the time, just like with LASA. It took the controller's office last time about 8 months to make them report, and they still fucked up. But this studio city will support it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right, anybody else from the public like to comment? All right, anybody on the committee like to comment? Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I read the motion. I'm a little bit concerned. The motion states the mayor as administrator would have the authority to spend from this account in a manner consistent with the purposes identified without further approval. And they do have, Mayor Bass would have to provide bi-weekly reports, accounting reports of how the money was spent and outcomes, but there are no consequences if these metrics aren't actually aren't actually good, if there's no positive outcome. She gets $100 million just to distribute as she sees fit, as long as it achieves certain goals. So I think that's a lot of money to give one individual responsibility over without any kind of check and balance. So I think this is going to be her political slush fund, if you will, to reward individuals who are basically favored by the mayor's office. So I don't think this is appropriate. I think the city council is giving up a lot of its power to one individual, and I don't think that's the right thing to do. I think there needs to be more oversight. There need to be additional checks and balances, and that's a lot of money to give to one individual to spend. So I would urge that we vote against this measure. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Scott.
Well, what I like about this plan is it's taking the existing money and it's taking it from that fire hose that's being pumped sort of out of control to all the alphabet agencies that have literally flushed it all down the toilet over these years. And we get comments from our elected and appointed leaders like, well, nothing we've tried so far has worked, but it hasn't slowed down their spending. I think it kind of goes hand in hand with the emergency order, the declaration of emergency that does go before the council each month to be renewed. So those are all the positives, but the negative, I completely agree with what Jeff said. That's still taking it from the way it was spent before and giving the responsibility to just the mayor. I don't know. I mean, that's a lot of money, and there's 15 council districts, and we know how that works. So I'm torn on this one at the moment. I'm tending to think it's a bad idea. Go ahead.
Shelley, go ahead.
So my concern with this, I was reading the document of the state of emergency. It states that 46% are affected by substance abuse, 34% are affected by a serious mental illness, 17% post-traumatic stress disorder, and 6% traumatic brain injuries. But then in this motion, it doesn't address any of those things. It says that this is a housing-led strategy, and scrolling down to where it talks about who partnering agencies would be. It doesn't include anything about substance abuse, mental health, or anything like that. And so that's a big concern to me because these are prominent underlying factors of homelessness.
Yeah. Well, I would say that I think all of you make really good points about the drawbacks to this. And I give you all respect for that. I would say and I'm not emotional about, I guess, either way, but I guess the positive that I see in this is that it does give her some control. And I feel like a lot of times the money that it's going through LASA and going through some of these other agencies, they're going through so much red tape that the money's being wasted. And I feel like she got elected, I think, on this issue being one of the main issues. And I think the people of the city have placed some trust in her. And I would hate to be so cynical to think that she's just gonna, throw it away or just give it to her friends. And, maybe that would happen, but I would like to think that her heart is in the right place and that she's going to do good things with that money and just be able to sort of get around the red tape and put the money directly where she thinks it needs to be. So that would be my hope, and it might be misplaced hope, but that would be my hope. And I think that because this has already passed, it passed on January 30th, that the city council folks have placed that trust in her. So that would be my thoughts on that. Anybody else want to share thoughts? Okay, so we shall go to a vote. This might actually be interesting. Okay, so Marcia Campbell.
No.
Okay, Ira Gold.
Nope.
Okay, Jeff Hartwick.
Nope.
Julie Houlihan. I'm gonna say yes. Scott Mandel.
No, I don't trust.
No trust. Okay, so we're gonna oppose that motion. All righty. Got it. All right, let's move on. Agenda item number 8.
Wait, real quick, does Shelley get to vote?
Did I not call on you, Shelley?
No.
I'm so sorry. Yes, you get to vote. I'm so sorry. Please, what is your vote?
My vote is no.
Your vote is yes.
No.
Your vote is no.
My vote is no.
Shelley. Shelley, did I not call you on the last one either?
No, you didn't. My vote for that one was yes.
Thank you. I'm really sorry about that. I did a bad chart here while I was thinking about other things, so my apologies. All right, now we will go to number 8. The Board of the Studio City Neighborhood Council supports or opposes Council File 22098, which requires Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, LASA, to release monthly reports for 1 year following any place-based intervention in the city involving more than 10 unhoused individuals, such as an encampment with 10 or more people. The reports would detail those who were placed in housing, what type of housing, who did not receive housing or who returned to the streets, any sort of outcome. So if the LASA goes in and clears an encampment, they are required to report what happened to all of those individuals. I guess we'll go to public comment. Goat Puppet, you have 90 seconds. Go ahead. Oh, hang on. You are muted. Let me get you unmuted there. Are you seeing your request to unmute?
Are you talking to me?
No, but go ahead while I try to sort Goat Puppet out.
Okay, leave my father will be there, don't worry. You know what I like about stuff like this? Parallel systems. I think the guy from the county programming, he understands parallel systems suck. This is just another parallel system. There's nothing unified. There's no direct depository or repository for stuff like this. It's all mixed mash. So if someone wants to quantitate it or do metrics, it's not there. Are you at blame, Madam Chair? Not at all. I think you're a flower child. You probably are a pretty good person that would annoy the shit out of me, but I wouldn't mind that. So that's the problem with stuff like this. They use parallel systems. Rather than having something unified in one place, they just spread it out, spread it out, and spread it out. And just a nothing to me. Just a fucking nothing. Thank you. My father, I think, will be on right now. Thank you.
Okay, great. And you timed it perfectly. Go Puppet, are you able to unmute?
What are you doing? I'm doing chores. Did you take out the trash? You don't believe me? No, I don't. There. Black. Well, thank you. All right. Now let me speak about this issue. This terrible thing. And again, 10 or more, it had to be 2 or more. Why not 3 or more? Who came up with this number 10? With these drug addicts. I want to do it like today on Channel 5. I want to bring large city equipment with a boom where it goes, picks up the tent, and throws it in the fucking trash. Yes. And then they come out and sweep, like I just did here on the floor. And then we bleach it. And then we repair the lights. And then it looks like this. Look, open sidewalks that are lighted at night. Do you see any drug sales now? Nope. What do you see? Cleanliness. That's what we need. And that's what Mayor Fishhead's not going to do. And that's not what that traitor did. And that's not what all the targets are going to do at City Hall. We have to do it now. Now. Well, the FBI. When they get off their ass, yes. Then we can open some more council seats.
All right,
That's the reason
time.
we're going to keep Kevin DeLine. Yes, keep up the good work, Kevin, like today. More bulldozers for homeless encampments.
Thank
That's my
you.
platform, yes.
All right, George, go ahead.
Nippy is on the Satan.
What a user once said could be framed as an actionable item is if we could request, in our motion, that the information should be published electronically on the dashboard. Said that, all these, independent parallel sources are a bad idea. Agreed, but if we're pushing for a dashboard, this belongs on it.
So for the public.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Board. Scott, go ahead.
Thanks. So
Or committee, sorry.
further to what George said and what was previously discussed, our friends at the Reseda Neighborhood Council actually have that in their CIS, where they're requesting more transparency in the number of permanent supporting housing units and interim housing beds within the Reseda neighborhood boundaries and the occupancy rates of these facilities on an ongoing basis. The information was provided previously to the West Valley Neighborhood Alliance and suddenly stopped. And it also says the public at large is paying for these services via taxes and other fees, and we feel it is our right to know this information. So I think it would be fine to plagiarize that from the Reseda CIS and add it to yours if others agree, because I think it's a fair point. There actually used to be a dashboard through Councilmember Rahman's office that would tell us how many beds were available, and it stopped functioning or stopped being updated. So obviously it is possible. So if you wanted to include that, it's on the council file from the Reseda Neighborhood Council's the most recent community impact statement. Thank you.
Okay. I would be happy to use that as an addendum in our motion. I'm not sure if I can read it because I don't have it in front of me this second, but you read it. Is that okay if we do it that way? Or do we need to reread it? Let me get on the.
I'll just second Scott's amendment.
Okay. All right, so let's go to a vote on the motion with the amendment as stated by Scott.
Shouldn't we read
We
the,
need to
the
vote on
exact,
the,
shouldn't we know the exact verbiage before we vote?
okay, well,
Yes, I
Scott
second.
read it, but I will try to reread it. It's a long paragraph. Okay. The Board of the Studio City Neighborhood Council supports Council File 220928, which requires LASA to release monthly reports for 1 year following any place-based intervention in the city involving more than 10 unhoused individuals, such as an encampment with 10 or more people. The reports would detail those who were placed in housing, what type of housing, who did not receive housing, or return to the streets. And oh, darn it, I lost, hang on. The Studio City Neighborhood Council respectfully requests more transparency on the number of permanent housing support sorry. Then let me just start over. The Studio City Neighborhood Council respectfully requests more transparency on the number of permanent support housing units and interim housing beds within the Studio City neighborhood boundaries and the occupancy rates of these facilities on an ongoing periodic basis, either monthly or at least quarterly. We also request that all neighborhood councils are provided the same courtesy. I'm not sure if the rest of this applies exactly. This information was provided previously to the West Valley Neighborhood Alliance on homelessness and then suddenly stopped without explanation. We feel strongly that this information is useful for our community, helps to find solutions and dispels potential myths about homelessness. In addition, the public at large is paying for these services via taxes and other fees, and we feel it is our right to know this information. We are asking for personal identification or other protected information. We are not asking for personal identification or other protected information, just the total number of beds and occupancy rates at each location.
You want to just leave just the very first paragraph, and then instead of saying Studio City neighborhood, just say SPA 2 service area. So at least we're covered and not confined to just the Studio City area.
Yeah, and I mean, motions usually, this is a summary. Motions aren't usually this long.
Yeah.
Like this, sometimes when you make your CIS, you add this explanation, right? Which I feel is appropriate for a CIS, but I've only read half of what would be the additional verbiage to the motion, and it feels like it's getting really long. So I guess I'm just getting sort of confused about whether or not to really include all of that in a motion. It's going to take up an entire page.
Just maybe just that first paragraph asking for the information and just end it, or the first sentence.
And we could addendize it to say that we would request that this information be posted for, public on a dashboard somewhere. I don't know if we have to say dashboard, but posted publicly for public consumption.
Just say available electronically.
Okay. Okay, so the motion would go through, instead of saying, we would stop. Where do we say spa to instead of neighborhood council?
It's instead of Studio City, just call it Spa 2 because there's overlap of what service providers use for Studio City because it's also the council district. So if we were to say just Studio City, we don't have any places in Studio City, but Hope of the Valley services Studio City for the tiny homes, and they're in North Hollywood and other cities. So I would just say Spa 2, and then we would see all the vacancies throughout the whole service provider area too, which is what they go by. I think that's
When
better.
you're saying first paragraph, do you mean the first couple
The first
sentences?
sentence. I think it's just one
Yeah.
sentence. Yeah.
First sentence,
I think
okay.
just the first sentence covers it.
And instead of saying receipt a neighborhood, we say spa 2.
Spa 2, yes, please.
Okay, let me read this. Should I read it one more time?
Does everybody agree with that? I hope.
Okay, let me see. Sorry, I'm having to go back and forth between the two things also, which is unfortunate for me right now. Okay. The board of the Studio City Neighborhood Council supports Council File 220928, which requires LASA to release monthly reports for 1 year following any place-based intervention in the city involving more than 10 unhoused individuals, such as an encampment with 10 or more people. The reports would detail those who were placed in housing, what type of housing, who did not receive housing, or returned to the streets. Now I've got to get back to that other page. The Studio City Neighborhood Council respectfully requests more transparency on the number of permanent support housing units and interim housing beds within the SPA 2 boundaries and the occupancy rates of these facilities in an ongoing periodic basis, either monthly or at least quarterly. These reports should be available to the public electronically. We good? All right. So with that, let's go to a vote. Marcia Campbell,
Yes.
Ira Gold,
Yes, sorry.
okay. Shelley Guttenson,
Yes.
Jeff Hartwick,
Yes.
Julie Houlihan, yes. Scott Mandel,
Yes.
fantastic. All right, thank you guys. I think we have a good motion. Just took me a minute to get there. And let me get back to the next agenda item. Okay. Agenda item 9. The Board of the Studio City Council Neighborhood Council, sorry, I didn't eat dinner. I think I'm getting like a little weird. Supports or opposes Council File 210042 S5, which requires landlords to provide 3 months rent and moving expenses to tenants when rent is raised more than either 10% or
No, never.
consumer price index plus 5% over 12 months, whichever is lesser. This does not apply to small landlords who own, there's an extra word there, a single family dwelling unit and no more than 4 additional dwelling units. So this is a lot more complicated than, that little tiny paragraph there, but I did look up the consumer price index right now is around 6.4%. So they're saying that, so that would be like 11.4% with the second example, the consumer price index plus 5. So if a tenant has their rent raised more, 10% or 12.5%, this landlord has to pay the tenant to move out, basically, and give them moving expenses, which I think was around $1,440 $44 or something like that. So I guess I'll let that go to public comment right now, and we can answer any questions as we go if we need to.
Get away from that.
Okay, you're going. Go ahead, Puppet.
Yes, and for the record, you need to provide beverages. Says who? No. According to the EDD labor standards, sir, I'm entitled to a work break and a meal break. Now, I don't like this at all. This is the work of evil. This is the work of the gray-haired, bleach black-haired Nithya ramen noodle, isn't it? It's the work of the devil. And you just sit there and keep thinking, how can I fuck up the city more? I don't know, it sounds fair. Well, think about it. What's it gonna do to the price of rent for new tenants? Oh, you're right, it'll increase it. Yes. Yes, you don't use your mind. Too bad Brandon's not here today. We could educate Mr. Marino on economics and politics at the same time. So I will demand a unanimous fucking no vote for this. And I will demand also that we send a letter and a copy to Dianne Fine, stupid, thanking her for resigning when she didn't even know there was a letter resigning. Yes. See what the Democrats do? Name a Republican that incompetent. George Santos. Nah, damn it. Besides
That's
him,
time.
her.
That's time.
Besides the cross-dresser.
Thank you.
Got a good point. Thank you. Yes.
All right.
I will yield
Colin-
my remaining time to the floor.
Okay, thank you. Call-in user 1.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to put my little legal weenie hat on. If you look at A, if it goes above where they're supposed to pay the 3 months rent, if I do that to one of my tenants, how long do they have to respond by? Is there, quote unquote, a statute of limitations? Do they have to respond within 30 days? Or is that perpetual? Can't have perpetual. In the legal world, that's called illusionary. So that's one problem right off the bat. So if I happen to raise 15%, can they come after they've been renting for me for 2 years saying, I want this now, even though my next increase might be only 1%? Second issue is C. It says the rent shall be based on the metro area of rental units of similar establishments by the Housing and Urban Development. Why is it not based on the lease contract? And also, where do they get $1,411? It's silent. That's the problem. This is a very vague nothing. This is a bureaucrat wet dream. So there's something called illusionary. Look it up. Vagueness doctrine. That's the problem with some of this stuff. It's very, very open-ranged. So you have one thing is with no statute, that's an A. I'm doing citation.
That's your
And
time.
then
Go ahead, finish up.
Okay. Are you okay? You said you didn't eat. Do I need to bring a Valentine dinner over to you or something like that?
I'm a little hungry.
When do you want to
But
go
I'm
out?
okay.
I have spam.
I'm still
not a
at
problem.
work.
Thank
They
you.
wrapped, but I'm still here.
Okay, bye. Thank you.
Okay.
Say Morton's.
Okay, let's go to committee. Go ahead, Ira.
So not every small or not small, but not every medium-sized landlord is raking in the dough. There are some that are struggling. I really have a problem with this. I understand that rents are increasing and life is increasing, and I mean it's tough to get ahead anyway, you know, in a single income household, which is just me. So personally, I can relate. However, I think I don't like this. I agree with one of the callers. I think this is a bureaucratic nightmare, and I think this is really unfair. I know a lot of medium-sized companies and I wouldn't say CEOs, but managers of those companies, and the companies are really hurting. And they're struggling to keep up with the upkeep for their mid-size units and compared to the rents. So I'm going to vote no on this. I think this is a terrible idea. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Scott.
Thanks. So I read through all the documents in the council file, and the only one that actually made sense to me was the one that was submitted by the California Apartment Association with their threat to litigate this council file. What they wrote actually really made sense to me, and this reads like rent control, and I'm opposed to rent control, and I hope this fails in the court and gets overturned, and I'm completely against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, this is akin to rent control. I mean, why is the city getting involved in private contracts between tenants and landlords? This is really burdensome. If, say, someone's renting for $2,000 a month and you want to increase their rent 10%, because inflation is 6.4%, and your costs are going up for utilities. Imagine the utility bill that a lot of these small landlords are getting hit with right now by the gas company and the electric company. So these are huge costs that they can't pass on to the tenant. And if they do, and the tenant wants to move out, then they got to pay 3 times the rent plus $1,411. I mean, this is absolute insanity. And people wonder why there's not enough housing stock in LA. It's because who wants to build apartments when you can build townhouses and not deal with these headaches as a developer and sell them? So I think this is just a terrible, terrible idea. It's anti-free market. It's interfering with the housing stock, and further, it applies to single family residences. So what's going to happen there? Well, people are just going to rent out to turn them into Airbnbs because they don't have to deal with renters, and they probably get more money for it. So that's going to reduce the availability of housing for families. So this is a bad idea. This is intervention in the free market that's unwarranted, and I oppose this very much. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I think you all make terrific points. I do think that there's always a good intention with some of these bills that are probably not completely thought through. It seems to me that if a tenant was paying $3,000 a month and the landlord wants to raise their rent by whatever, 25%, they just want to make more money, they can give this person $9,000 plus moving costs, $10,500, and they can raise the rent as much as they want, right? And they can just replace that person with a much higher rent, which is good for them, which is, I guess, free market, but I think that was the good intent behind the bill. And if that person is going to be displaced, at least they get some type of compensation that helps them move somewhere else. So I think that was the good intent. And maybe they didn't look at all the negatives that you guys are bringing up now. So I always like to look at least at what the good intent was. So does anybody else have a comment, or should we go to a vote? All right. And it did pass, so I guess it will be challenged in court, sounds like. All right. Marcia Campbell, would you, do you want to, I'll just put this support and you can say no, and then if we all say no, then we'll oppose or the opposite, right? So let's just go with support and you can vote yes or no.
No, because I can't even believe it passed, but no.
Okay. Ira Gold,
Nope.
Shelley Gutenson. That's a no. Jeff Hartwick,
Nope.
Julie Houlihan, I'll say no. Scott Mandel,
No.
all righty. All right, here's our last motion of the night, you guys. This one was introduced on January 31st. It's still pretty fresh. And it's in the same sort of ballpark, having to do with housing. So I'll go ahead and read it. The Board of the Studio City Neighborhood Council supports or opposes Council File 210042-S5 to establish a small housing provider assistance program to provide payment directly to housing providers who incurred debt due to rental arrears during the course of the pandemic and report on program parameter recommendations. The fund would provide a rental debt assistance fund. I'm not sure if that makes sense. The fund would provide rental debt assistance. I think it should just be for the small and local housing providers in this city who otherwise may never recover lost rental income, could resort to selling property to corporations, or may lose property to foreclosures for their own unpaid mortgages. So this is, I think the intent of this is to help the little guys, the mom and pop, what they call the mom and pop housing providers. These are people that have a small number of properties, 4 dwelling units or less, compensating them for losses that they have experienced through the COVID pandemic, setting up a fund for that. So I will go ahead and open it up to public comment on this. Go ahead, Goat Puppet.
You're up to something again, I know it. No, I'm nothing. I'm always innocent. So again, do we support giving landlords money? Of course, yes. And the reason why is because of all the shit that we landlords have to put up with. I have various tenants of my own, you know. Cows, moo. We have a couple of dogs. And we have a couple of other goats. And some of them haven't been pulling their own weight. Now, unlike you humans, I take things into my own hands. I will kick them off of my farm unless they pull their fucking weight. But you humans have something called what? Housing rights. Yes, very complicated concept. But how much is it costing us landlords? And how come the Board of Supervisors is giving out $30,000 in one-time grants directly to the landlord? But that's only for the unincorporated areas. And how come these cheap bastards can't do the same? Why? Nithya Ramen Noodle. Yes, that's right. Yes, and that's why her picture's up on the board. The #1 enemy of landlords, taxpayers,
That's
humans,
time.
even goats occasionally. But at least she helps give me a job. Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Thank you, Goat Puppet.
Chaos gives me employment. Nom, 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 nom.
Call in user 1, go ahead.
Oh, thank you for unmuting me again. No, that was a mistake.
Call in user 1. Oh. Are you able to unmute?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Before. Yes.
For clarification, you're hungry? I have a 2-for-1 coupon. You could buy and I'm free if you want me to come on over. I could do that. You could pay for your own meal. I get for free. I have a 2-for-1 coupon. Okay, that being said, this is called regurgitation taxation. And you're asking, what's that mean? Money that they're giving out basically goes to the property taxes. They could care less about the foreclosures or anything like that. They have no statistics on that. I think that what you're trying to do right now is not ripe yet, because I would want to see some numbers on whatever analysts that's going to be doing this. But basically, what they're doing is they're getting federal money to do this. So it could basically be the amount of the taxes, named property taxes, to get paid to the county. How it works. Because you don't want, it's where the threshold is where they don't profit on it. They want the city to be held. So regurgitation through taxation. That's what it is. It's the actual term and everything. So I think you should table this to get it more ripe. I think it's a good thing to bring up, but that's what it is. Are you sure I can't have a 2-for-1 coupon? You buy yours and I get mine for free. How about it? I won't take a shower, I promise. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey,
All
get away from my gift cards.
Does anybody on committee want to discuss this? Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, real quick. Reading the motion, it turns out that tenants got $1.6 billion in rental assistance. And then an additional 27.6 million from the city for tenant eviction defense programs. And the landlords here are only getting $10 million. So I think there is a huge disparity in what the city is doing here. I don't think the city should be in the business of supporting one side or the other, but at least to level the playing field, I think we should pass this since so much aid has gone in the other direction. So I would actually support this, even though philosophically I would tend to be opposed to this. Thank you.
Scott?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with what Jeff said. We shouldn't be in the business of handing out the money, but we took the income away, not we, the city, took the income away from property owners and let people, in many cases, simply self-attest that they didn't have money to pay the rent while they took all their COVID relief money. I mean, there's stories in the news all the time about people going on shopping sprees and spending and not having to pay their rent. And a lot of people got stuck. And it wasn't just the mom and pop, the way they're framing this. I mean, there are larger property owners that also took the same hit. I mean, when you're on those margins and you're expecting the rent and the rent doesn't come in and you can't evict, you know, it's taking. They took income from people and protected just one class. And there's an obvious hatred of property owners from our city council with everything they keep passing, and they just despise, obviously they despise property owners. And this is too little too late, but it's something. So I do support something better than nothing. Thank you.
Well, it feels like they are against large property owners, you know, the bigger ones. It feels like they're always trying to curtail their business. But I agree with you guys. It's crazy how much money that renters have received, and it does seem like a lot of that money should have gone directly to the landlords. It's kind of troubling. It's a complicated measure, you know, and so I do understand the thought behind trying to suss it out more, but on the other hand, I think sometimes we are philosophically presenting our opinions as well. So if anybody else doesn't have a comment, we'll go to vote. Okay, Marcia Campbell,
Yes.
Ira Gold,
Yes.
Shelley Gutchinson,
Yes.
Jeff Hartwick,
Yes.
Julie Houlihan, yes. Scott Mandel,
Yes.
great. Motion passes. Okay, that was a lot of motions. Thank you guys for your very thoughtful comments and your attention to this. So, and I'm sorry for the next board meeting. Maybe I shouldn't put up every single thing that I see that looks interesting or related. And there's things that we don't even get to. So just let's go to number 11, discussion regarding potential topics for future meetings. Jeff, I just want to let you know that I haven't forgotten that you were interested in a housing report. And I will try to get somebody to come maybe to one of our next meetings and give a report about, regarding the HHH and other housing that's being developed. I think that's a worthy topic. I just haven't had the wherewithal to organize that, but I haven't forgotten it. Does anybody else, I guess I need to go to public comment, don't I, for that?
Ira has a question.
Well, thank you for that. Ira, go ahead.
I mean, I could wait till public comment's over. I'm gonna give a suggestion.
Okay, great. Go ahead, Puppet.
That's right. Well, there's two things, and Scott forgot to tell you this. There's been a lot of money handed out for free to pay your back DWP bills. Yes, millions and millions of dollars. I know of a millionaire that just stopped paying his electric and water bill, and he got relief. Are you fucking serious? Yes. I told you, sir, to stop paying your goddamn bills, but did you listen to me? No. You listen to that fucking accountant of yours to raise your, what do you call that thing that starts with an F, a fucko? FICO. Yes, a FICO. See, Scott, you have to sell your soul to get a decent fucking FICO score when you could have gotten 2 years, 3 years of free water and power. You could have filled your swimming pool every 6 months for free. You dummies, you. But for those of you out there that didn't pay your bills, you know you've been receiving those credits. Congratulations on behalf of Goat Puppet. Also, did you know today the council went into closed session talking about removing trailers off of our sidewalks in City Street? Yes, they were in there
That's
for
time.
2 hours. Yes, they're real sneaky, aren't they? Remember, people, don't pay your fucking bills when they're handing out money from
Thank
Washington.
you.
Yes. Now
Thank
I make
you.
a motion to adjourn for Valentine's night.
We're almost there. Can't wait.
I
Okay.
want my candy
Ira,
now.
go
You
ahead.
promised.
Thanks. I just wanted to reiterate my request for a discussion with our city officials about catchment areas. That's we talked about why if there's a certain area that has beds, or something or other. I would just like clarification on those and a discussion on how could they be eliminated if possible, and could they even be eliminated? We touched on that a couple times, but that was my request from last week or last meeting.
Okay, yeah, I'll see if I can get Lorraine Diaz to come on, because I did discuss that with her outside of committee, and it did not sound like it was doable for a number of reasons. So, but I will let her explain that, and I'll ask her to come on and explain that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you got it. Go ahead, Scott.
I'll be quick. As far as we know now, we're set for in-person mandatory meetings come March. There's a lot that could change between now and March 1st. There'll be more information hopefully tomorrow night at our board meeting from our NEA, who will update us on the progress of alternatives to in-person meetings. But as it stands now, we are all meeting in person at the Radford Lot Committee and Board starting March 1st.
Great. Ira, is your hand up anew, or is that just still up?
No, sorry, I'll put it down.
No worries.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so closing comment is just to say thank you guys again for coming tonight on Valentine's Day. I hope that you have a good rest of your evening. Thank you for being so productive. And I'll look forward to speaking with you guys before next month and seeing you again next month, possibly in person. Motion to adjourn?
Yes, yes.
I make a motion
Second.
to adjourn? All right. I guess we don't have to vote on that.
Good night, everybody.
Sign off. Good night, you
Bye.
guys.